Welcome to The Sear Show. Join us as we dive into the dynamic world of health, wellness, mindset, and fitness with the unparalleled guidance of lifelong knowledge seekers, Sifu Rafael and Nikki Gangemi. Sifu and Nikki will unlock groundbreaking insights with extraordinary guests from around the globe. You'll get the latest holistic approaches to well-being with a sharp focus on the powerful connection between mind, body, and soul. Get ready to take the leap. It's time to embrace a brighter and healthier future with us at The Sear Show.
5, 4, 0.
Good morning, Nikki. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Sifu. I'm doing excellent. And how are you?
I am exceptional and I'm getting better. A little bit every day, a little bit.
Every day.
And you know, I am better today that now I'm talking to you. So thank you.
Oh, happy to be of service.
Yes, absolutely. And here's the cool thing. We have two people who are going to come on our show who are going to make us better too, right? So why don't we go ahead and bring them on? We have David and Jose. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah.
Good morning.
When we think about a shareable self, what does that mean to anyone here? Shareable self.
I think it's quite simple in my mind. I'm a firm believer that simplicity is key. Keep it simple, right? So if I had to just put that into one thought, it would be the importance of being selfless, having a giver's attitude, thinking about not necessarily less of yourself, but of yourself less, right? And just giving freely without any expectation in return, and just being there for others, and just, you know, the whole idea of giving. I think serving others is key, and that's really, serving others is the essence of sharing, right? So I think the shareable self, if I had to put in that context, it would be us serving other people.
Wow, love it, love it. What are your thoughts, David?
Actually, I've never heard that term. Do you have a definition?
Do I? Didn't you just hear Jose tell us?
Well, that's Jose's interpretation, I thought.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what exactly it is. Is it something that we can just grab at, or is it something there is a definition to it?
Well, let's think of the self and the shelf, right? Jose has a bunch of books behind him. And before, I was sharing all different kinds of mugs with you guys before we came on. And it's what you can share. Do you keep it on the shelf? And do you keep it to yourself, or do you share it with other people? One of the things that Jose does beautifully is when somebody comes to his headquarters, and he's done it with me, is that he actually says to them, look at all my books. I'd love for you to pick one that speaks to you. And so he shares his love of reading with someone else so that they can also enjoy it. So that's the shareable self.
Well,
Take it
thank
off
you.
the shelf. Take it off the shelf and share it.
I think then in that case, for me, it might be just a little different. Shareable self then would be being present, right, with the individual you're with, and validating them and giving them those things that they need at that moment, if I have the capabilities and the understanding of it.
Love it. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts, Nikki?
Yeah. I think my thoughts are a little bit swayed by our mug conversation before we started going live. And I started thinking of, in order to share the best parts of me, that I've got to have something in my cup. So I've noticed that, I've noticed that if I have prioritized everybody else and everything, and didn't fuel or recharge myself, I didn't have a lot of good to share, and how that's not really helpful to other people, and it could be hurtful. So I'm a big believer in being self-full. That's not my term. I heard it from somewhere and I don't remember. But filling yourself up, and whether that's having your morning routine, Jose is a big believer in that and teaches that, and fueling yourself, and then you can share the best parts of you with others.
Yeah, love it, love it. I love all the different ideas and thoughts behind shareable self. And I think before we can share ourselves, we have to be selfish. We have to take care of us. We have to be in our own mind initially in order for us to be able to even help someone, to be there, to be present, like you talked about. But a lot of people, they'll encounter other people, and yet they're thinking of what am I going to see next, or what is coming up, or is lunch ready? Meanwhile, they're not considered um, spending the time in front of the person they are in front of, and they're thinking of what's next instead of what's now. So for me, sharing yourself is like you talked about it, David, as well, is sharing myself in the moment because I prepared for this moment. So that's my thought.
I love it.
I do think that sometimes we may be talking to somebody and we have a shopping list in our mind, right? And we may not be present in that moment. We're there physically and we're thinking exactly what you're saying. What's next? What am I doing next? Oh, what are we having for lunch? So I kind of agree that we go off on that. So I find that I have to bring myself back to the conversation and be present, but ask questions. You know, what's a question I can ask about this? And that, of course, you know, validates the person, but it gives them a chance to answer. You know, I think all of us like to be asked questions about ourselves, you know, and we learn a little more. I was telling my wife, I said, I'm always triangulating because somebody says something and sometimes I go, did I get that? Do I understand? So I need to ask questions to say, okay, let's do this. Let's do that. All right. Now I got it. I'm always thinking ahead. And the problem is I could be misinformed. I could be telling myself the wrong things.
I'd love to piggyback off of what you just said, David. I think one of the reasons why podcasts are so hot these days, outside of the fact because they're packed with value and insights, I think it's really hot because people love to talk about themselves. So when you offer somebody a platform to talk about themselves and say, hey, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions to learn about you and to promote you and to talk about you, people are like, oh, this is amazing. I just can't wait to talk about myself, right? And I think it's just a natural, innate thing that we all like to talk about ourselves, right? The whole philosophy that's taught in How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, right? One of the most powerful words in the English language is the sound of someone's own name, right? And if we use that person's name over and over and over, they like us more. And when you're having a conversation, if it's focused around the other person, then they're going to enjoy that conversation a heck of a lot more if it's about you, right? So when you're having a conversation with somebody and you let them talk 70% of the time, and you're just in listen mode, not just listening, but active listening, it's amazing how when they walk away from you and you only said 20% of very little, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, what a great conversation. This guy, David, is just phenomenal. When you really said little to nothing and they were talking the whole time, but because they got to talk the whole time about themselves and you seemed genuinely interested leaning into the conversation and you were actively listening and you were asking, you know, deeper questions and you were using their name and you were likable and smiling, and you were just giving of yourself and very inquisitive, it just so happens that they think you're amazing. And I think that's the power of shareable self, is just sharing up from yourself, but with a genuine interest in other people.
Jose, have you ever had the situation where you had to say somebody's name several times just to remember it?
Yes.
All the time. As a matter of fact, I mean, I don't want to say this out loud because they say words become things. But the reality is that I am not good at memorizing names. So I have to brainwash myself and saying that I'm great at remembering names. The reality is that you can tell me your name 5 times, and then I'll still be like, what is this guy's name? So I just have to, work on that. We're all working on something, right? So I'm working on the name thing, but I think the name thing is super important.
I'm going to piggyback off of that, because sometimes when you go to an event and you just spoke with somebody and they said their name once, and you were so engulfed into what they were saying that their name escaped you, and then you walk away, and then you want to come back to say something to them at a different time, and you go,
right,
was their name? And then you go to the other person, excuse me, hey, you, what's their name again?
What's their name?
And they're like, So I think that's why labels at events are important, right?
Name tags.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I called it labels, right? Because of this, right? I'm going to tell you what I do. When I go to an event, I take the lanyard that you put it around your neck. I take it and I put it down below. And then people look at me and they're like, what's your name? Oh. Because now it makes me feel like they want to know me instead of just reading it, right? So now all of a sudden, I will say my name because now they want to know my name. Compared to, I'm just telling you my name and it's going to be a fleeting thing for you. But now you're curious. And because you asked me my name, all of a sudden it's going to be embedded just a tiny little bit more than if I just had that lanyard on. And I do it at every event. And it's funny because they give me the lanyard and I'm there and I just take it and I stick it out. You can still see it. It's down my leg, but it's not in front of my chest. So it's the way, I guess we're going to get into the next part of what this conversation is about. It's personality, right? How do you show up when you are in front of someone else? The words you use, how you treat them. And Jose talked about is the questions you ask them, right? And one of the questions is it's okay to say, hey, you know what? I'm really sorry, but can you tell me your name? And they're going to go either in 2 ways. One is like, you really want to know who I am, or, geez, you didn't even pay attention the first time I told you. So I want to go and listen. I apologize, right? I didn't mean to forget your name, but I don't want to forget it now. So can you tell me again?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it draws the interest back to them. And then they can talk and I'll be quiet at this point.
Yeah.
Like I am now.
Yes. Well, I had that. It's like you were at the event I was at last night. I had that exact experience. I was meeting about 15 people. Some of the names stuck when I made a connection. Someone, I said, oh, I live in Hazlitt. Somebody across the room heard Hazlitt and, oh my God, I live there too. What's your name? Carolyn. And then I said, I thought of a good friend that I had. And I connected, and then I remembered Carolyn because I made that connection to somebody I already know. But then there was somebody that told me her name, and it went right out the window. And I said to her, "Can you tell me your name again, please?" And then she did, and I said, "Great, I'm going to say it again so that it sticks." So I just, and I said it as a joke, but it was like, let's just call this out and make it something we can laugh about,
Well, Nikki, I remember the first time I met you because we're talking about personality. You came up and you were greeting everybody with a smile and you were very confident and it just is memorable, So my move has always been smiling and because I think that's an easier in. But here I want to show you something. My father, great man that he was, this is his face. So what I learned is that I have to smile because people will get the wrong impression. Now that was a happy face for my father, right? So, you're like, okay, but that's not a happy face for the world. So I think to answer the question for me is I always enter with a smile. And if someone's coming towards me, even if I don't recall their name and they're smiling, I'm going, oh, that's a friend. That's good.
Yeah, you know, I gotta jump on that too, because I always joke around. Usually, when I do any kind of presentation or a talk on a stage, wherever it might be, whether it's virtual or in person, I always throw in there. Well, 80% of the time, I throw in there. You know, I am a natural personality of a stop sign. You know, a personality of a stop sign, because I'm very serious. I normally like to cross my arms. This is my natural kind of like resting place that I enjoy. Usually my normal face has these things here. You see those like aggressive, I don't look very happy. So I'm usually just like my resting face of just normal. I feel good. It's a beautiful day is like this, right? Now, if you saw me with this here, without smiling, no teeth, and just like this, and especially have tattoos. So if you saw that too, then you'd be like,
You look like a bouncer.
Guy. I don't know if I want to talk to this guy, or I don't know if he's doing security for you know, Sifu or Nikki, but this is not somebody who's approachable. So I had to learn the power of the smile, right? I had to learn the power of an open body language. I had to learn the fact that I shouldn't have my hands in my pockets or crossing my arms. I got to have open body language and posture. I got to smile. I have to make eye contact. I have to approach people. You know how many people walk into a room and wait for somebody to come say hi to them? Like, no, and a lot of times it doesn't happen. So then you end up in a corner by yourself. And what I found is whenever people go into networking rooms to like meet other people, whatever, and sometimes even if you're not there to network, you have to, sometimes it's just by default, you have to do it. If you're at a big convention or a summit or a boot camp or mastermind, whatever, and there's a bunch of people there, you're there to learn and to listen to speakers, but there's times when it's like networking time, right? And you didn't necessarily go to the event to network, but you kind of have to by default. So the reality is that when you're doing these things, sometimes people don't approach people, so they just kind of hang out in their little pocket until one person finally comes to talk to you, and you're like, oh, thank God somebody's talking to me. And then you start talking to this person, and then you try to hold on to that person as long as you can. And all of a sudden, you're only talking to that person 70% of the time at this event because you're comfortable. And the reality is that you have to break that cycle and say, you know what, I'm going to spend no more than 5 minutes with this person. I don't care how awesome they are. If there's somebody who should be in my world, I'll follow up with them on a virtual call and we'll build a deeper relationship. But right now, my role and my job is to add as much value to as many people in this room and to meet as many people and to make as many friends as possible. And it's important to work around the room.
Let me ask you a question, and maybe the whole group. The question is that there are serious meetings we have to be at, very serious.
Yeah.
And the subject matter and the topic is not something to be flippant about. How is it that you enter those meetings? You enter with a smile, it may not be appropriate at that time.
I'm gonna go with that one. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
I don't care.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you why. Unless it's a funeral, life is beautiful. It could be the most dynamic, interesting, money-making meeting ever, and everybody there is a lawyer. I'm going to come and I'm going to smile. And they're going to go, why are you smiling? Don't you see how serious this is? I said, because I'm excited on how serious this is. And you should be excited too. Unless we're here at a funeral, then yeah, I'm not going to smile, right? But believe it or not, when you're sitting at a funeral and you start talking about the person that died, all of a sudden people are remembering things and people are laughing, people are doing all that, people are crying. There's all sorts of emotions that happen. So why should we not enter a place that may be serious and be excited on how serious it is? So that's my take.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say that smiling is an all the time thing. It's not a sometimes thing. It's an all the time thing. Outside of, like you said, a funeral, you know, obviously you're not going to be smiling at a funeral, at least not at a you know, inappropriate time. I mean, you know, somebody might feel the loss, but still find joy in their heart, you know, and I'm a firm believer that it's not about just happy times. Even if it's an unhappy moment, you can still find joy, and somebody might crack a smile. If somebody lost a brother or a friend or a colleague, they can still at some point crack a smile at the funeral, even though they just lost somebody. And if they smile, you smile. that would be the appropriate thing at a funeral. But when it comes to, and some people call it celebration of life, and if you're celebrating, you're smiling, right? So it depends on the nature of the funeral, but essentially smiling is an all the time thing. I don't think there's any environment where I would just walk in very serious like everybody else and just kind of do that, because as a matter of fact, 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10 times, they're going to see you in a wonderful light, because you bring some energy and some little magnetic piece that is missing from that room. And I think a smile should never be a missing link in a room of any kind.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I love all of that. I was actually, because Sifu, when you were bringing up funerals, I was thinking, at least at the funerals I've been, you know, with family, even my grandmother's funeral last December, there's the sad initially, and then people start talking, and then the sound gets louder. Before you know it, it sounds like we're at a party and people are laughing, and you know. But a lot of it's remembering those old times, and so yeah, I think we can. I think, like Emilio says, the rule, you know, smile always. The rule of one. Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to make a point, and I'm curious to kind of hear everybody's perspective on this. The whole idea, the concept of, because we're talking about the shareable self, but there's also the internal, the intrinsic self, right? The self that is like something we don't share with people. You know, so I'm curious, where is that line of the shareable self versus the internal self that you don't share with others?
Okay, dopamine has to ask. Reframe the question.
So I'll give you an example, an easy example. The shareable self for me. So I'm Catholic, cradle Catholic, born and raised, proud of my faith, very involved in my church, 3rd degree Knight of Columbus. I don't hide it from anyone, but it's not necessarily something that I'm constantly sharing with people, because I don't want to step on people's toes. I don't want them to feel like I'm like badgering them about my faith. I don't want to feel like, you know, people only see me from the lens of faith. They see me as a businessman. They see me as a family man. They see me as different things, right? You know, somebody who's all about motivation, inspiration, health and wellness, that type of stuff. So I will never like not talk about my health and or my faith, but that's the internal self. That's kind of how I see everything and how I show up with everything. So that internal self is not necessarily something I'm going to go and share all the time with everyone. So the question is, where is that line? Like, where do you draw the line? What are some examples, or maybe some things where it's like the internal self, and it's things I just kind of keep to me and kind of keep close. And if I'm, you know, kind of picked, what is that called? If I'm kind of prodded to talk about it, and I'll talk about it. Like, what is that line for you?
I'll jump right in. Is sometimes we have to find it's a safe place. You know, in the world we're in now, there are so many subjects I love to talk about. And again, my wife will kick me under the table because I'll be with friends and somebody brings up politics. And I love those discussions, but it's not a safe place. And so when talking to different people, I said, listen, it is not my intention at all to offend anybody or anything. But if you want to have this conversation, we can. But I do hold back, Jose, because my intention is not to offend. It is to combine, get us all to be together. And but if someone has an interesting subject and they want to explore it, and they don't mind somebody having a difference of opinion or a different take on it, or a different paradigm we come from, then I said that is could be a very civil conversation, and it could be very helpful. Not trying to change anybody, saying, listen, I want to understand. One of the best things I know is that Benjamin Franklin always said the libraries are where we go to speak and talk and debate. Now, sometimes it's spirited, but the idea is to share thought and to learn. So I think that is part of, you know, holding back if you have to keep the peace. But on the same token, like you're saying, is if someone asks, I'm going to tell them, you know. So, very good, Jose.
I have to agree with what you just said, David, because for me, it's you need to peel me to get to my core. And not everybody will ever see my core, because there is complex behind me. But what I show in public is different than when I show in private. The people who are closest to me are the only ones that will see my core, right? Other people may try to peel me, and they're going to cry, right? Because I am that onion, right? But it is important for everybody, I believe, to hold their core under a lot of layers, that only certain people are allowed to see that core, because there's vulnerability there. There is there's so much that people may never understand, because they didn't go through all the layers. They just take a knife and cut, and they just look at the core, and that's all they get. They didn't understand how that core was built, how it
Yes,
started, right?
Mhm.
So for me, I'm okay with, my good friends getting to know me, but it's only a select few who will get to know the core.
Very good.
That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah,
Great question.
it is a great question. I share a lot naturally. Sometimes people say, that's a lot of information. So I've had to learn how to share less and think of, who is it that I'm talking to? Is this appropriate? And what are they really asking me before I overshare?
Right.
But I was listening to David, and I thought, one thing that I will share a little less, just because of reactions I've gotten in the past, is when it comes to politics, which, I'm not political at all, or the news. I used to say, I don't watch the news. And you could probably guess the response that I get. It's very common. It's almost like it's on a script and people just say it.
Really?
Well, you've got to be informed. What does that even mean? So that's something that I won't share. If somebody brings something up, I'll just say, oh, I didn't hear about that. Tell me. And then I'll listen. Yeah.
I think it comes down to usually religion and politics. I think we've heard that many times, where those are just kind of things that are more personal, more to yourself, internal, and you'll talk about it if there's someone who wants to talk about it. I will never hold back from my religious or political views, only in the environment where it's welcome and it's asked.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to just bring it to people's attention. You will not see me posting on social media about my political views, or telling people that they need to go to mass or to go to church. That's not going to be what I do. But I don't necessarily hold back from it, and I'm very genuine and authentic and real if people ask me. And the cool thing
Jose, you'll get a happy birthday on the Facebook from me. That's the extent.
Yeah. No, I'd like to, I guess, another thought that I have in terms of our shareable self, of us sharing about ourselves, is the fact that if we're constantly sharing on social media, right, whatever platforms you use. I love Facebook, I love LinkedIn and Instagram. Those are my three, but I live on Facebook. That's kind of my primary place where I hang out. And I think the shareable self invites other people to come into your world way before they even meet you. Right.
Okay.
And that's the power of the shareable self, is you get to share yourself with people before they even get to meet you. And then one day you meet the person and they already know, like, and trust you because they've been following you on social media. And that's the power of sharing who you are and what you're about, and just being raw and authentic and real and genuine. What you see with me is what you get wherever I am.
Right. Yeah. It's a great point.
Let's talk about positioning yourself. And you just talked about social media. You talked about the three platforms that you like. How is it that we can position ourselves to be even an authority, or to be someone that somebody says, hey, you know what? I think I want to be your friend. Not that, hey, you know what? This is a great person. I'm going to just sell all my stuff to them. And that's how we get friends. On can we connect? And then once you connect, boom, you get bombarded. So positioning yourself to say, this week I've gotten so many LinkedIn touches, if you will. hey, love to connect with you. Okay, click, let's connect. All of a sudden, they're like bombarded with, buy my program, do this, do that. I love what you're doing. Da, 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 da. You're incredible. I want you. And then come to my things and do all this stuff. And so my response to them is, I just thought you wanted to connect. I am here just for connections. I am not selling you anything.
Right.
We can connect. And then if there's some synergy, we can chat. And that's how I respond. And people like, oh, thank you. Or if they, yeah,
So
or, you know,
they
thank you.
appreciate that.
Or, yeah, but you don't understand. I still, and so at that point I go, no, thank you. Right.
Yeah.
So how do you
No, thank you.
position yourself in a way that people do actually genuinely just want to connect?
That sounded like a bait and switch to me,
Oh,
right? Uh, and actually, what they need is sales training, knowing
no doubt.
things like that, and they needed to understand that you know, people are people, and now they put themselves in a position. They put themselves in a position where they don't trust. Jose, you were mentioning know, like, and trust, and we're very familiar with that. And what I'd add to that is two other words, and I do it with my clients. I say, listen, you know, they have to believe in you, and they have to know there's certainty with you. And those are true feelings that, you know, people, whether it's clients or friends or family, they have to know and believe in you and have some certainty among those other things that you said, Jose, you know. And I think that when one positions themselves, I think it's best to do it with some compassion, some kindness, some tolerance. And I think people see that, and you have to be genuine in what you're doing. So when you're genuine, those particular people will be drawn to you or attracted to you in doing that. That's my 2 cents on that.
Love it.
Love
Thank
it.
you.
I love the idea of I talk about this all the time as being inimitable, right? Inimitable, especially when it comes to positioning. You're not necessarily trying to position yourself as the best. You're not saying I'm better than everybody else. Not necessarily. What you're saying is that you want to be seen as the only person who does what you do the way you do it, right?
Mhm.
And in the sense that you are inimitable, right? Nobody else can copy what you're saying. So, for example, if I'm in Maryland and there's we're known for crab cakes and we're crabs, right? The crab state, right? So, if you want a Maryland crab, you won't find a Maryland blue crab male anywhere in the country. The best place to get it is in Maryland. So, and if there's a particular shop here, a restaurant that has blue crabs and they have the best crab cake in town, then they're going to say, we have the number one best crab cake in town. And if that is what separates them from everybody, then they better talk about that and sprinkle that into their entire messaging of everything that they do. Right. So you don't necessarily have to be the best per se in the crab business, but they are the best crab cake in town. And they've been rated the best crab cake for 3 years in a row from Washingtonian Magazine. So that should be what you lead with. Right. So with Connected Leaders Academy and what I do, I always say to myself, what makes me inimitable? What separates me from all the other networking groups out there? And I lead with that. And again, I think when it comes to positioning, it's not how that I'm the best. It is why I do what I do in a way that nobody else can do it.
Love it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
about
my
you,
mind, I was just going to say, my mind went in two directions when you had at first asked about positioning yourself and establishing yourself as an authority. And I just thought about consistency, you know, just showing up and talking about the same, you know, maybe 1 to 5 different topics. And, you know, that's something that I do, make it an intention to post on social media, share stories, vulnerable stories about myself too, just to show that I've been there, not just talking, you know, off the cuff. And I think that positions you as you know what you're talking about when you share, going back to the shareable self, parts of you. That's the one thing. And as far as reaching out in the DMs or whatever, it's not something that I do often. If I know somebody or if I see or somebody was trying to connect me, then of course I do. I do receive a lot of those messages. And one statement that my business mentor shared with me that I love that she uses, when you get that person that wants to connect and then they compliment you and then they want to get on a call and they're really just a stranger and they want to meet with you, and she'll ask them, in what capacity do you want to meet? And it's such like a general question. Some people might not even know what that means, but I used it one time on someone who met me at a networking event and then reached out to connect. And when I asked him, he said, well, when we were talking in the breakout room, it sounded like you were interested in my store, and I wanted to talk about that. So I was glad I asked that question because I was being polite and showing interest, but it wasn't something I wanted to, talk further about.
Yeah, that's a really great question, because a lot of people, because you showed interest, because they were speaking in front of you, it lets them think that, oh yes, now they want everything. Now it's time to sell them, instead of saying, hey, let's just have a genuine connection. I'd love to share this with you guys. Just take a look. You followed the rules, tried the restrictions, counted the carbs, the steps, and the failures. You're not lazy, you're exhausted from doing it all without real change. What if the problem isn't you, but the plan? Sifu's Mind Body Method is a 90-day transformation built on 7 unshakable pillars: mindset, movement, nutrition, hydration, fasting, journaling, and faith. This isn't another shortcut. It's your structure, your strength, your reset. You don't need harder, you need better. Ready to begin? Start today. So that's one of the things that I have out there now. And when I do certain things like that, is I let people know that it's not just something I'm pushing, it's something I do for me. And I'm just excited that Nikki is also part of this program, and so is Jose.
And so is David. I'm just kidding.
And so will David be soon.
Unqualified, not by any means.
Let me ask you. No, that's good. That's good, right? So, David, I'm not going to reach out on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, David, you said." So I'm going to ask you right now: are you alive?
Was the word alive?
Yes.
Okay, here we go again. Reframe. Reframe.
So you're alive. That means that you qualify. That's all I'm trying to say.
Nikki, help me here.
You're living and breathing and you're moving.
He's being funny.
Okay. Oh, okay. Jeez.
Yeah. As long as you're alive, you qualify.
Oh, okay. Great. Yes, I am. I can say that.
I love it. So here's the thing, right? When we position ourselves, everybody says we have to find our perfect avatar. I am looking for men between 48 and 48 and a half. That's really defining who we're looking for, or maybe 48 to 52. And then what happens is anybody who's 47, sorry, no good. Anybody who's 53, no good. So when I created this whole thing, I said, who is my avatar? And it's exactly that. If you are looking to have a life worth living, that's my avatar. Anybody. So children, adults of any age, and women. Because I'm going to separate women from men because we are two different identities in a way. So that's how I position myself out there because of what I do, right? On a daily basis. It's not something I think about or I do once in a while. I do it 24/7. So the other thing that I want to talk to you guys about is, let's think about, and this is going to be probably the ending of it, is your power moves. What does that do for you as a human being when we talk about your own personal power moves? And what are they and how do they show up in your life? I'd
Before I
love
go
to.
to before I go
Jose,
to,
go.
I love this whole topic of what we're talking about, personality, positioning, power moves, the whole thing. By the way, where did you even come up with this topic of today? I think it's a very unique topic. I'm curious.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Well, I figured I knew some of the people who were coming on, and you know.
Oh, it's a good topic. We can go all day on this. Actually, probably a series of episodes here. But
We're on.
there's a famous quote that says, "If you don't define your brand, right, someone else will." So if you don't define your brand, someone else will. And get this, they're not going to get it right.
Mhm.
So that's the last thing I wanted to say about positioning before we go into power moves, because I was holding on to that for a while.
You let it out. Yes.
I absolutely love the idea of positioning, because I think positioning is really what allows you to deliver your power moves effectively. If you can't position yourself, your power moves are ineffective.
Good point.
Yeah, love it. Love it.
Mhm.
So answer that question, Jose. What are your power moves?
For me, it's I would say strategic execution. Very important. Everything I do is intentional. There's nothing I do that's just unintentional, that's just by default, or how the wind blows, or I go like this and feel the air, and I don't do any of that. Everything I do is very intentional. So I'm very particular about what I do, when I do it, how I do it, all the things. So if I had to just drop one power move that I do on a regular daily basis, is the power moves of curating relationships. Right? You have to develop strong relationships in life, first and foremost, and in business, in order to move the needle personally and professionally. So for me, it's like John Maxwell says, "Hi, I'm John Maxwell, and I'm your friend." Right? So people need to feel that you're their friend. People need to feel that you genuinely care about them. People need to feel that you have a genuine interest in their life, and that you want to add value to them, that you want to serve them, that you want to pour out of your cup to fill up theirs. And when people genuinely feel that you care, it's amazing how far they're going to go to bat for you. It's amazing how people are going to want to serve you in return, how they're going to want to promote you, how they're going to want to endorse you and support you and encourage you and motivate you and inspire you, and all the things that you want from somebody. You have to be willing to give it first. So I think one of my power moves is not just building relationships and curating and developing these relationships. It's making sure that I serve first, and I care about people first, and I give first. And only then do people line up to go to bat for you. That's a big power move for me.
Oof, love it. Powerful, my friend. David, what are your power moves, if you will?
I really only have one, and it's to be curious. If I'm in a conversation with somebody, even if I'm not feeling it with them, then get curious. Franklin D. Roosevelt, what was his wife's name? Do you recall?
Eleanor.
Eleanor. Eleanor Roosevelt was asked one time by somebody how they hated their job, they hated their life, they hate all this other stuff. And she says, if you can't get out of that job, then get curious and find out about that job, and it will change your perspective on it. So what I take away from that is I would be curious about people, and I enjoy that. And I love to hear people's stories, and so that's part of what I like to do. But I really love to be curious about things.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah,
Incredible.
I do love that. That is a power move I recently adopted, is being curious and asking questions. Another one that I've been doing for a really long time is pausing. For me, that's a power. For a long time, I was the yes woman, we'll say, instead of yes man. I was like, I'll just say yes, yes. And then I noticed, because I'm a doer and I'm someone who takes a lot of action, and I'm also someone who has not gotten the results that I wanted despite all of that action. And what I learned is, if my energy is not aligned with what I want, then I could be doing all the doing and it's not going to be what I'm looking for. You know, it's not going to be helpful. So for me, a power move is pausing, getting quiet, and getting clear on what is it that I want, and then leading from the aligned energy, and then taking action, if that makes sense.
Very nice.
That makes a lot of sense. We are coming to that time where we're basically done. I'm just going to tell you what my power moves are. They're based on my habits, and movement for me is it. Movement is what defines me, because I don't like sitting still. And when people say, how do you do all the things you do? It's because of movement. It's because of my habits. That's it for me.
You
What
know
I
what,
love.
Sifu? Sorry, 30
Go ahead.
seconds. I just have to say this because then it's gonna, be stuck in me for the rest of the day. And who wants to do that when we're talking about shareable self, right? So I don't want to hold it in, so I'm going to say it out loud publicly. 30 seconds. It's not just about, delivering your power moves, about the visibility and getting out there and doing the things. It's really more about doing the right things, not just doing things, but doing the right things in the public view. Okay, so that's the secret sauce. Is you can be doing the right things, but if you're doing the right things keeping it to yourself, then the public doesn't see what you're about. They don't see the transparency. They don't see how you show up. So they might have a disconnect, or they might not see you in the light of how you want to see them, right? So a power move is doing the right things, but doing the right things in the public view. And it's not fake. It's not disingenuous. You are just being you, but you're showing the world what you're about, and how you show up and what you do. And that makes all the difference. Too many people are doing the right things, but they're doing it privately.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it is that time. So, Jose, we're going to give you 45 seconds. Tell us how people can connect with you. And by the way, Jose is also my co-host on another show called Heroes Rising. And on Monday at 11 a.m., Jose is going to be on Author's Tales, another show, and we're going to be discussing, let me hold this up here for everybody, this incredible book that he's written, Winning the Day, right? So, Jose, take it away, my friend. 45 seconds.
Yeah. So connectedleadersacademy.com. That's the best place you can go. Connectedleadersacademy.com. The website is scrolling at the bottom here. That's my networking organization, 500 plus members, 47 states, 28 countries, growing every day. If you want to get on more stages, podcasts, referral partners, collaborations, more clients, more money, visibility, you name it. This is a hub for entrepreneurs. Reach out, book a virtual coffee with me there. You can email me as well, and find me primarily on Facebook. That's my hub.
Perfect. Thank you. David, you're up, my friend.
Well, I'm David Lita. I'm a marketing manager, and I can be reached through LinkedIn. So what I do is I primarily work with solo practices and financial and legal and also medical arenas who need a fractional marketing manager to make sure all the tasks are done and get creatives done and things like that. Thanks.
Thank you. Nikki.
Thank you. The best way to connect with me is nikkigangemi.com, and I help high achievers who tend to put a lot of pressure on themselves quiet that mental chaos, get clear on what they want, and take action on things they've been putting off for sometimes 20 and 30 years. One of the good first step you can take is to visit my monthly reset lab for high achievers, and that's happening tomorrow. It's complimentary, and it's a great space to this month learn how to self-express and communicate and say what you want with ease.
Love it. Love it. And I'm Sifu Rafael. What can I say? And I asked earlier, if you're alive, then maybe my program could be there for you. It's let's reset your life. Let's be the best version of who you are supposed to be, not the one that you think you are. There's more to you than you imagine. So let's help you with that. I'm Sifu Rafael. Thank you so much for being here. And it was an incredible conversation. You guys are like superstars. You might heard a little ding. I have another show coming up in a few minutes. It's called Coaching Call, and I have an incredible human being who's going to be there. Do me a favor. What an incredible show, incredible guest, incredible co-host. Share this show with others who need to hear today's message. We never know how we can impact through sharing. So be shareable with your information. Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed day, and we will see you next
You
time.
too.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a pleasant day.